me know when you're ready. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. It is Wednesday night. I typically give you some type of NBR show on Monday night, but I chose to go ahead and give it to you on Wednesday night. Sunday night we had some breaking news with Tyke Smith, the transfer from West Virginia, committing to the University of Georgia. So Monday night we had to do a film breakdown for that guy. That's the rules. I don't make them up. I didn't write the rules. I just obey them. So that's what we did Monday night. If you haven't checked it out already, what are you missing out on? I mean, there's a lot of great stuff on that Tyke Smith breakdown, so feel free to check that out. Just search probably latest video. Honestly, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, as you should be, it's probably over there in the right-hand corner. So save it, tab it, whatever. Check out the links on the videos at our channel over there on YouTube whenever you can. Make sure you check out that Tyke Smith breakdown. It is very informative, not only about what he's going to bring to the table for Georgia, but what Georgia's going to ask him to do, and ultimately what that does in terms of an impact on that roster. So feel free to check out that video. We've got some great content going on all week long over on dogsdaily.com. Again, that's Dogs Daily. Dogs like every Georgia fan in the world's ever spelled dogs. Daily.com. That's our Sports Illustrated associated channel covering Georgia Bulldogs news. One thing, last piece of business I'll do. If you're not already subscribed to our Patreon account, please feel free to do so. Patreon.com/Brooks Austin. But let's get into some NBR stuff and the Discord folks, the Patreon subscribers, our OG family. Hopefully they're going to make their first full appearance on this show tonight. We call it Dog Chatting. Dog Chat is the name of our Discord lounge, or the name of our Discord chat. We've got a lounge over there where guys hang out. We shoot the bull throughout the night, whether it's last night or 2 nights ago, right? Watching the national title game, whether it's playing video games together, whatever it is, talking ball, watching film together. There's a big source of community over there in our Discord chat, and we're going to hopefully bring those guys to air tonight. We've had some good quality content over there lately. I'm excited to bring it to air. I don't know if it's going to work. We'll be talking about the importance of QB swag, right? Having a quarterback with some swag. I'll tell you how vital it is, how some of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game of football, some of the most dominant quarterbacks in the history of the game of football, carried themselves, with a level of swagoo that is uncommon. Swagoo, a word and a flash term that we didn't expect to talk about tonight 5 minutes into the show. A lot of talk about spring inter-squad games. Shout out to Mr. Mullet out there at Oklahoma State. The lovely Mike Gundy has given us a soundbite that we're going to talk about tonight, and I'll give you my opinion on whether or not actual games should be played in the spring, whether it's 1, whether it's 2, whatever it is, an inter-squad, the idea of an inter-squad game, we'll bring that to you tonight as well. But we're really going to start tonight with some NFL draft talk, specifically Eric Stokes. Okay, for those of you who don't know the full background on Eric Stokes, this is a guy that's got 26, that's a lot, 26 career starts in the SEC, played in about 30 football games during his time at the University of Georgia. In 2020, he was an all-SEC selection. He was an all-American selection by some outlets, and he was second in the SEC in turnovers with 4 interceptions. Flash forward to his pro day, 6'1", 196 pounds, clocked in at 4.25 in the 40, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Once at his pro day with Brandon Marshall, twice at his pro day at the University of Georgia was he hovering around that 4.25 mark and verticaled about 41.5 inches. Now, my history, as anybody who's ever, and as your history as for anybody who's ever followed the NFL draft, you should know that those numbers, that statistic or that stat line in terms of a career patriarch and a career arc in terms of a football player, especially a corner, that's NFL first-round draft pick type pedigree. Again, we're talking 26 starts, all SEC, all American caliber football player, and then goes and in his pro day puts up those kind of NFL high-level, rare rarefied air numbers in terms of his pro day script. Those are first-round caliber players. 9 times out of 10, that guy is drawing first-round comparisons. Yet, Stokes is projected right now to be a middling second-round draft pick. Some guys got him outside the top 20 or top 75 in terms of draft selections. And some outlets, including Pro Football Focus, Dicko, give me the graphic, don't even have him ranked as a top 10 corner in this year's 2021 NFL draft. Guys like, J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, Tyson Campbell even, ahead of him in terms of their top 10 available corners in this year's NFL draft, which I got a lot of questions today and over the last couple of days about, hey, why is Eric Stokes not getting the love? What is going on? This guy puts together an NFL first-round caliber career during his time at Georgia, defies all the odds in terms of, being a low-leveled recruit or not necessarily highly touted recruit coming out of high school, jumps over guys at Georgia that he was probably recruited over, kept his job for 2.5 years as a starter at the University of Georgia. Why is this guy not getting any love? And, I'll kind of break it down for you right here. I've been telling you guys on this channel for probably a year now, maybe, about the lack of ball skills that Eric Stokes possesses. And I got a lot of flack. Every single time this guy got an interception, I got to mention during games about, hey, thought you said this guy couldn't catch. Thought you said this guy couldn't catch. And that's fine. While he did finish second in the SEC in interceptions, go back and look at those interceptions. All four of them. Is he attacking the ball? Meaning, is he going and grabbing the ball away from his chest? Or is the ball attacking him? Did he catch the football against Tennessee when the ball was tipped, or did the ball catch him? Did he catch the football against Florida where Kyle Trask hit him in the stomach, or did the ball catch him? Those are the questions, and I laid those questions out even before his NFL Pro Day, and he goes to the Pro Day at Georgia, and he damn near drops every ball that's thrown in his direction. And some people were a little bit surprised about it. Eric Stokes addressed it in his post-Pro Day interview about how he was disappointed in his ball skills. And I'm here to tell you that that's something he's not very confident about, period. He's not used to catching the football. What he's great at is staying in phase. What do I mean by staying in phase? I mean talking about staying in the hip pocket of the wide receiver, and that's great. Matter of fact, he might be the best in-phase corner Georgia's had in the last half decade, maybe even a full decade. Okay, I know DeAndre Baker was great during his time at Georgia, but Eric Stokes was on that level in terms of, I'm right here in the hip pocket of my defender or my wide receiver. I'm right here on the spot. And that's all great. Again, it's awesome to be able to stay into phase. But at some point, you've got to be able to play the ball in the air. Okay? Stokes, again, one of the best corners in the history, but quarterbacks are one of the best staying in phase corners in the history of Georgia, just in terms of, again, staying right next to his guy. But quarterbacks in the NFL nowadays are entirely too good for the job title of a corner to just be close to the wide receiver. It's not good enough anymore. These quarterbacks have gotten so good, so pinpoint accurate that, the number one requirement for an NFL quarterback is accuracy. And this is why. Spaces in the NFL become much, much, much tighter. Okay, every corner stays in phase. Every quarterback can put the ball in the perfect spot. It's the oldest cliche in terms of quarterback play in football. No good defense for a great ball, right? There's no perfect defense for a perfectly thrown football. It's the same thing. It's even more so for corners on the NFL. If NFL GMs, if NFL evaluators have questions about your ability to impact the ball while the ball is in the air, that is a red flag. And that is a red flag that they can't really invest in, right? At least in terms of high draft capital, which, he fell outside of that top 10 on that PFF list. That's still a top 80 player, top 75 player. The NFL has, last year, I think 5 corners went in the first round. 5, maybe 4 or 5 corners went in that first round of that NFL draft last year. And guess what? This year, it'll probably be the same thing. Surtain, probably going to be a first-round corner. The Farley kid from Virginia Tech, probably going to be a first-round corner. J.C. Horn, definitely going to be a first-round corner, okay? There is a lot of good defensive backs in this draft, and they'll go quickly, okay? And that'll leave room for Eric Stokes. But for all the times that I was criticized, not necessarily criticized, it's not about me, but for all the times that I told you that the ball skills were important, the ability to track the football in the air, go up, make a play on it, disrupt the football, or better yet, come down with the football, those are vital. Those are absolutely vital, especially when we're talking about the NFL pedigree and the ability to translate what a kid did in college to what he may or may not be able to do on the NFL level. So what you're hoping for if you're Eric Stokes, or if you're Eric Stokes' agent, family, or even if you're just a Georgia fan that loves to see young men and women succeed coming out of your program, what you're hoping for is that NFL defensive backs coach says, oh, wow, 6'1", 6'1 and a half, 196 pounds, 4.25 speed. Absolutely. I'll teach him how to catch a damn football. Bring him on my football roster because I can't teach what that young man has, which is top end speed, right? Which is elite short area quickness and recovery speed. That's what he's got. But again, it's all good if you can catch up to the guy that just ran by you, or even better yet, if you never let him get by you. But if there's a 6-inch window for quarterbacks to fit that ball in the NFL, they're going to find a way to put that ball in there. I'll tell you a brief story before we move on to our next segment. It was about Mecole Hardman, actually. I had a chance to watch Mecole Hardman work out. Shout out to Stephon Brown, wide receivers coach over there at Westlake. Trains Mecole in the offseason when he comes back to Atlanta. And Mecole was telling a young wide receiver about how important it is to, as soon as you get out of the break, to have your hands ready to catch a football. Because the space created in the NFL is so much smaller because defensive backs are so great. And quarterbacks, for that matter, are so great as well, that you've always got to be ready to make a contested catch, or always got to be ready to have your head turn around to catch the football in a tight window, things like that. Windows get much, much tighter in the NFL. Quarterbacks get much, much better in the NFL. Wide receivers get much, much better in the NFL. Those are the things right now that are, I believe, limiting Eric Stokes' total NFL draft ability, like where he's at in terms of his ceiling as a prospect. Tyson, on the other hand, is a much higher ceiling in terms of what NFL evaluators think that they can make that young man, because they know he has the ball. They know he has the ball skills. They know he's a 4.31 athlete. They know he's 6'1.5". They know he's got extremely long arms. They know he's bendy or fluid in his hips. They know he can do all these things. They just haven't seen it on tape. But what the way NFL evaluators believe is they believe if you give me the mold, if you give me a guy that's got all the tools, I can probably apply those tools to make him successful in my unit. That's how those kind of things work. All right, so that's kind of my bag on Eric Stokes, and we'll continue to talk about the draft as we get closer to it. I think we still got, a month or so, right, before the NFL draft. So I don't know what we're going to do for the NFL draft, but we'll do some type of event, some type of show here. Last year, I think I streamed it for 4.5 hours with John Garcia. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not doing that. Will not be streaming 4.5 hours worth of draft content, even though I did enjoy it with my boy John Garcia. We'll take the moment right quick to just ask you to follow me on Twitter. As a random ask, I never do it, but at Brooks Austin SI over there on Twitter, feel free to hit me up. And I'll do another favor here, not necessarily for the show, but more so for the platform. If you're somebody that's thought about joining our Patreon account, and maybe money's a little tight because we're in a national or a global pandemic, and maybe you've been laid off, whatever the situation is, if you've been wanting to join a bona fide Georgia football community that talks ball and has a good time with it, then hit me up on Twitter or hit me up on YouTube, whatever it is. Get in contact with me. We've got a donation fee, or not a donation fee, a donation pool that we've put together over there on our Discord family and our Patreon family for people like you. So if that's you, hit us up or hit me up, hit Dicko up, hit somebody up. Get in touch with me, and we will take care of you, and we will get you a Patreon subscription. So feel free to check that out. All right, so we got another clip coming up, so let's get ready for that. But will actual spring games come to college football? Is that going to be something that we see in the foreseeable future? Or are Oklahoma State and Arkansas actually going to play? But we'll talk about it. But let's first let Mr. Mullet give it to us. Apparently this is a thing now, thanks to Mr. I'm a Man, I'm 40, come attack me.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good for us to scrimmage Arkansas. You got Nebraska, you got A&M. There's teams around that would be good to have a spring game, spring scrimmage, where you would do like the NFL, do some inside, do some 7-on, do some team. I would be for that, just from a number standpoint. So what happens is when we get into the spring game, on most years we don't have enough depth to have a real good spring game. So the reason we haven't had one in a while is because I think it's not favorable for the fans because we don't have enough depth, and then you can't function. If you were to play a game against Arkansas or Nebraska or A&M or somebody and practice game, you could get really quality work. So I would be for that.
Of course he's for it.
In just short notice without thinking through it.
Appreciate you on that, Dicko. Just two of my favorite sentences in that clip, and I think one preceded the other. And you really can't even make this up. You absolutely 1,000% cannot make these statements up. The first one was, we don't have enough quality depth to actually put together a spring game. That was statement number one. Statement number two was we've got to make a better product for the fans and inferring that they should actually play a real game. So first, you don't have enough depth to actually play yourself during a spring game, but yet you want to play an actual game. You don't want to inter-squad between one another. You want to go play an actual game against Arkansas, which, by the way, that was not a coinky-dink that he just threw Arkansas out because Sam Pittman, within 5 hours, automatically responded and said, oh, yeah, I think it's a great idea. Well, he probably thinks it's a great idea because they probably had back-channel discussions about it. I would just, throw that out there. But for the statement of we don't have enough quality depth to play an actual spring game to be then quickly followed by we got to make a better product for our fans, is just absolutely asinine. Could you be more contradictory is my question for Mr. Mike Gundy. I mean, seriously, if you don't have enough quality depth for the spring game, why? Well, his answer to that, his rebuttal, I guarantee you, would be something along the lines of, well, because, we just have too many injuries. We have some guys out. We just don't have enough bodies. We got some guys getting surgery from last season, that last war that we went through, this 16-week war we went through our past season. We got about 8 guys still out from that, and we've had some injuries throughout the spring season. We got about a quarter of our roster that's, licking their wounds at this point, so we can't be playing an actual game between ourselves. But yeah, we can travel to Little Rock and play Sam Pittman in the SEC Arkansas Razorbacks. We got plenty of that. We can play an actual game for money and for the better product of the fans, but we don't have enough quality bodies and quality depth to play ourselves. Don't really make no sense, does it? No. And I'm going to say something right now that I know a lot of media members won't tell you. Okay, because a lot of media members see, oh, yeah, I mean, Georgia playing whoever it would be. Georgia playing, let's call it Clemson. Georgia playing Clemson in a spring game would be great for the media. We would have so much to talk about. We would have something to talk about for a month preceding the game, and we would have something to talk about for a month after the game, as opposed to this just wasteland and, desert land in terms of content creation for about 6 months during the offseason. It would be absolutely great for media members everywhere across the United States for college football teams to actually play one another during the spring. But I'm going to tell you something that none of those guys and gals will ever tell you. Don't you get enough? I mean seriously, don't you get enough? In the 12 regular season games, don't you get enough? In the bowl games, don't you get enough? In the playoff, the college football playoff that was not sanctioned by college football players in a collective bargaining agreement. No, they were told this is how we run things now and appreciate it. So do you not get enough? I mean, think about it. Georgia fans, think about this. I've got Georgia fans in my mentions, especially following the Jermaine Burton injury, that told me, oh, Georgia should just stop spring practice right now. They're so cursed with injuries. No way. We should just call it quits. That's what I was told. Now people want an actual game? They want an actual game. Not where we're 50% halfway through practice, we'll thud up, we'll just, approach the ball carrier, don't tackle him to the ground, stay up. No, y'all don't want that. Y'all want an actual game? That's what people want? Yet, we got injuries falling left and right. I just think it's funny. It would be great. It would be absolutely great for college football in terms of the business of college football for there to be a spring game, an actual spring game. It would be great for business, for Oklahoma State to travel to Little Rock and play the Arkansas Razorbacks. It would be absolutely great for the college football business. But reaching and grabbing for an actual spring game feels an awful lot to me like the NFL just adding a 17th regular season game for just the money purposes of it. Now, granted, the NFL collectively bargains that, but it's a business decision, right? They have decided as 32 business owners that we would be better off dropping a preseason game and actually playing a 17th regular season game. That is the same exact business decision that every media member and every coach like Mike Gundy and Sam Pittman is putting forth in front of you. A business decision to take a spring inter-squad between, your own program and turning it into a business venture, which, by the way, they'll be selling tickets to, just like they sell tickets to G-Day game, or just like they sell tickets to Sam Pittman and Arkansas's inter-squad games, just like all that. They'll be selling tickets. You're in favor of that business decision, and you might give flack to the NFL for their business decision, but I just find it funny that, to me, the same exact people that tell me, hey, I like college football because of the love of the game. It's not a business in college football. I love college football. Screw the NFL. The NFL is too much of a business. There's no love in it. Those people are the same people that are comfortable with these types of business decisions being made by the people that run college football. Of course we want a spring game. We want a real spring game. But you don't take into account that the playoff game was not collectively bargained by players. You don't take into account that they've extended the season by an extra additional 2 games, basically, if you're playing for a national title. You don't take into account that this is a month and a half long spring practice season, basically, for college football players, a month and a half. So we got a month and a half from whether it be mid-May to mid-April or mid-March to mid-April, like Georgia's. Okay, you got a month and a half there. And you got a football season that camp starts in August. If you're playing for a national championship, you're going all the way through January. So we got a month and a half in spring. We got August, September, October, November, December, January, another 6 months. So basically, we just want these guys to work for 7.5, 8 months out of the year, playing real football, not just working out during the summer. That's a whole nother discussion. Real football, y'all want them to play for 8.5 months. It's not feasible. It's not possible. You think Mike Gundy, you think your roster's beat up and banged up now. Just imagine. Just imagine what would happen if you add an additional game to that in the spring. So I'm out on this whole idea of a real spring football game. It's great in theory. That's all fine. But hey, Mike, I mean, seriously, are you not getting enough of a warm up? I gotta find these actual games. I think they play Missouri, not Mizzou. They play Missouri State to open their season. Then they stay at home and play Tulsa, and then they play, I believe it's Boise State. That's how Oklahoma State opens up their season next year. I mean, Tulsa, Oklahoma State usually is a close game, but it shouldn't be, is what I'm saying. What I'm saying to these coaches is you get your tune-up games, bro. Don't ask to play Arkansas in the spring, okay? Don't ask for an additional game. I know you can, and you can just install it because there's no collective bargaining agreement. Players have no options. They have no choice, which is why I come on here in a useless, meaningless platform like I have right now comparatively to what Mike Gundy has and tell you that it's boo hockey. Okay, it is absolute bull hockey for an NCAA coach to sit there and say, yes, I want another game added in this spring so we can get some actual work. No, man. Because your players will get actual work, and what you'll get is an actual bonus added onto your contract, most likely. Because guess what it is? It's additional revenues. When they sell out the stadium, Boone Pickens Stadium, out there at Oklahoma State, when they sell it out for a spring game, guess who's probably going to get a small portion of a raise in his contract? Mike Gundy. Guess who's not? The safety that tears his ACL playing Arkansas in a meaningless spring game. That's who's not going to get additional money. Okay, so I'm out on all those. I'm out on all those things. If you can't tell by now, if you don't know by now, I'm very, very player-oriented. I fight for players' rights. I think it's a very important thing. And college football players, guys, they have no representation. Nobody really cares about them. Okay, because they're in and out of most of these college programs. Now, occasionally you'll run across a coach that actually gives a damn. Okay, and those guys typically stay around for a long, long time. Okay, some of the best college football coaches actually care about their players. That's why they're great football coaches. All right, into our last kind of discussion before we get into some lounging chat. And again, I'm excited for lounging tonight with the Dog Chat homies. I'm also very, very anxious to see how it works. I'm anxious to see how this entire show's worked afterwards. I don't know how I'm feeling. Dicko, how we doing? Thumbs up, thumbs down. How we doing tonight? Thumbs down. Thumbs down tonight. Sorry, I'm not bringing the heat tonight. I apologize for you guys. Speaking of bringing some heat, though, there's some quarterbacks with some swag. Okay, and what do I mean by quarterbacks with swag, and why is it important? Why is it important for a quarterback to have swag? Well, I'll tell you right now, and let me take you all the way back, okay? Back to January 22nd, 1989. The San Francisco 49ers are playing the Cincinnati Bengals. It's Super Bowl 23, okay? The 49ers are down 16-13 with 3 minutes and 10 seconds left in the game with the ball on their own 8-yard line. So they get the ball backed up in their own end. They've got to drive the length of the field. Got to score a touchdown. Well, I guess they could kick a field goal to send it to overtime, but they got to score a touchdown to win the football game. Very, very crucial drive with 3 minutes and 10 seconds left. Well, Joe Montana, the quarterback of the 49ers at the time, only a two-time Super Bowl winning champion at this moment, walks into the huddle prior to the very first play of that series and looks at his teammates, stops, gets down on a knee, turns around, looks up and goes, "Oh, man, look, that's John Candy in the stands over there." John Candy, a very famous movie star at that moment in time. The entire huddle looks over at John Candy, looks back at Joe Montana. They all have a good chuckle. The tension is broken, and they drive 92 yards, the length of the field, and score a touchdown. They win Super Bowl 23, 20-16. You ever seen that guy Brett Favre play a game of football? I've seen quite a few in my day. I'm talking throwing of the snowballs at teammates after touchdowns, making snow angels in the end zones after touchdowns. A true reckless and childlike belief in his abilities when on the field of football. Okay, absolutely out there having a blast and playing like a child. I would consider that having swag. How about Tom Brady? Tom Brady seems like a straight-laced cut guy. TB12, right? Doesn't even eat strawberries. Interesting cat, right? Well, have you ever watched that guy command a sideline during a football game? Absolutely the governor and the chief of that sideline, right? Walking around with a bunch of swag. How about that time he was talking trash to Tyrann Mathieu in the Super Bowl? That was about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Looked like a guy that was carrying himself with uber levels of confidence. Am I right? How about Peyton Manning? Ever seen that guy in a commercial? You ever watch Peyton's Places? A great TV show, a great on-air personality, a great guy with a bunch of confidence and a bunch of swag. You ever seen him at the line of scrimmage pre-snap, right? Omaha, check Omaha. He was dominating the line of scrimmage and confidently doing so. Takes a lot of swag. Broadway freaking Joe Namath. That guy's got some swag, right? A fur coat, an absolute fur coat worn on the sideline. Whole bunch of swag right there. How about anybody remember T.I.'s absolute banger called Rubber Band Man back in 2004? Well, guess who was top booking in a video with Sean Diddy Combs, with Usher in it. I'm pretty sure Snoop Dogg made an appearance. A whole bunch of highly touted, very well-known superstars in the Atlanta area in the hip-hop scene. Guess who got top billing on that video feature? Michael Vick, who just so happened to be the quarterback at the time for the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, and that's top level swag. I mean, he was in all kinds of hip hop music videos throughout the time. Anybody remember Cam Newton? Watching Cam Newton in his prime. The Superman persona, the unstoppable physical force, the trash talking and dabbing with first downs. Why do I tell you all that stuff? What is the point? I brought in Rubber Band Man, T.I.'s music video, Michael Vick, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, all these guys. What's the point? Well, the point is to tell you that the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game, or the most dominant quarterbacks in the history of the game, because I don't think Cam Newton can enter that echelon, but at times, even in the NFL, especially in college, he was the most dominant football player on the field at times. So what do all these guys have in common? Well, they've got some swag about them, right? They've got that it factor is what I call it. That just resounding confidence that not only you portray yourself with and that you carry yourself with, but that others around you respond to, right? That level of swag, that level of confidence, it's contagious. It absolutely is. It is contagious for the others around you, that when you carry yourself with so much confidence in the things that you're doing on the football field, the others around you will begin to believe in themselves. It is very, very important. So why do I tell you that? I tell you that because I 100% believe JT Daniels got the same level, if not more, swag than all of these guys I just named. Is his game on par with those guys? No, not quite yet, but his confidence, his aura that he walks around with, the energy in which he brings into that building, it is Cam Newton, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady-esque, right? Tom Brady can walk down to Tampa Bay and just insert himself into that culture and make it a winnable franchise, right? Phillip Rivers, say what you want about Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers had a noodle for an arm and took the Indianapolis Colts to a 10-6 record after a year previously when they didn't make the playoffs, okay? It's that level of confidence. It's that level of swag. So I tell you that to tell you that despite George Pickens being out for the foreseeable future, who knows how long, despite Georgia's defense maybe not being as great as it once was under the time of Kirby Smart as head coach, despite all those things, despite Jermaine Burton being out this spring, despite whatever is thrown his way, barring some type of season-ending injury for himself, JT Daniels will put Georgia in positions to win football games. That is facts. because of the history of a QB with swag. If you got a QB with that it factor, because to me, that's what it is. It's not about being, it is about being first in the building, last to leave, all that leadership cliche stuff. But it's also about instilling that belief in others, that others look at you and say, we got that guy, we're good. And I think going into 2021, that's exactly how Georgia's roster looks at JT Daniels. They look across the line of scrimmage or whatever it is, those defenders, they look across the line of scrimmage in practice and they know, we got that guy, we're okay. The wide receivers, they know, we got that guy, we're okay. The offensive coordinator, for even that much, looks across at what he's got in that quarterback room and says, we're okay. We'll be okay because we got a guy that everyone believes in. We got a guy with oodles and oodles of swag. And swag, a word that just is thrown out there. But all it is confidence, right? Confidence and a level of coolness about you, a level of suave about you. But that is my JT Daniels segment, and we've got some folks lining up in this lounge. Again, I don't know how this is going to go. I really don't. We do this in the lounge every single night. Seems like, Dicko, is that right? Probably every night, I would say. Every night, at least, 4 or 5 nights a week, we are in the lounge hanging out, shooting the bull, talking some football. And today we had an interesting topic come up in the Discord lounge, or not in the Discord lounge, but in the Discord chat over there on the Dog Chat Lounge. It was about Justin Fields and Jake Fromm. A hot topic, an absolute hot topic, a rolling, steaming hot topic in Georgia fandom. It's been around for quite some time. So I'm going to open it up to the floor here. I'm just going to let these guys drive the conversation. So if anybody wants to hop in here and just give their initial thoughts after I give mine, that's more than fine. I see Andrew unmuting. We'll go to you next. But I'll just kind of give you my thought process on this, and maybe I'll take your words right out of your mouth. But the hindsight 2020 stuff's all good, right? Everyone sees Justin Fields probably going to be a top 5 NFL draft pick. Everybody sees what he did at Ohio State, took him to 2 college football playoffs, lost them both, that's fine. Took him to a national title game, lost it, that's fine. All good, and all fine and good. They look at it, and some Georgia fans will say, well, Kirby Smart made the wrong decision, should have played the more talented guy. How did he not see it? To which I will say, Kirby Smart is coming off his second year as a head coach in college football. Second year, and had just taken a football team with a freshman quarterback, I might add, to a national title game. Okay? To a national title game, was a 2nd and 26 away from winning the first national title at his alma mater since 1980. He was that close. Okay? So you're telling me going into your 3rd season as a head football coach in your life, okay? He didn't have a job at Michigan State before he got to LSU. He didn't have a job at Bowling Green. He didn't have a job at Utah before he got to Florida, okay? He didn't have that previous job to learn these types of things and get things under the ropes before he got into a major, career-altering decision, basically, is the way fans throw it at me in terms of this Fields-Fromm discussion. So how can you reasonably expect going into the 2018 season, fresh off of a season where, again, you were 2nd and 26 away from a national title? How can you realistically look at your head coach and say, you made the wrong decision for not playing the other guy? How can you do that? But you can, because you have hindsight 2020. I think is a mute discussion. It is a moot point, I believe is how you say those things. A moot point. There's no point even discussing it, but we're going to put it to bed tonight, and we are going to discuss it. Andrew, I told you we would go to you first after I got done gas bagging. SSL, first of all, welcome back to the waves here on MBR. You are one of our most pristine callers. What say you about these Fromm's Fields discussions?
It has been way too long, my man. Way too long. First off, are my settings good? Are we good here?
You're good, bro. We hear you loud and clear.
I am ready to fire off on this one, man. This has been 3 years of me getting the anger just seep. It just annoys me to no end. It annoys me to no end when people bring this up. To no end. Because you wanted to say, oh, well, Kirby should have known. Get out of here with that. First off, I don't even understand why Justin Fields even came to UGA. I don't. I don't understand why he came here. I don't understand why we recruited him. I don't understand why he thought this was a good fit for him. I really don't understand that.
Well, from my understanding, I don't mean to cut your rant off here. It is nothing but rants. But from my understanding, based off what I've heard from the Fields camp, was that it was I'm not necessarily promised to him, but it was portrayed to him as if it was going to be an open competition the moment he stepped onto campus. Now, was it ever truly an open competition? I don't know. But from all indications, all signs are that it was promised to him that if you come here, if you commit to Georgia, if you come to the home state school, you will have an opportunity to compete for the job. There will be no promises as to whether or not the job will be yours, but the promise is you will be able to compete fully for the job. So continue.
See, I get that, but it has nothing to do whatsoever with the competition. It has nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
The offense that UGA was running at the time with Jim Chaney as its coordinator was not one that I think Justin Fields was capable of running. I don't think
you're a he can't process guy.
Well, I don't even think it's that. I just don't think it was suited to what he does. I don't.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So
I've heard this theory, and we'll get some other thoughts here. I've heard this theory that, if you have one criticism for Kirby, it's the fact that, hey, how can you sit there and watch a 5th-round draft pick, or what would ultimately end up being a 5th-round draft pick in Jake Fromm, practice over and over again in practice every single day, and then watch that other guy get reps and practice in Justin Fields and not realize that one is supremely more talented than the other? So
how do you know that at the time? How do you know that at the time? Honestly,
I don't know that at the time, but I would imagine, just from seeing Justin Fields in high school, seeing what Jake Fromm looked like as a junior in college, I can tell you right now that Justin Fields was the more supremely talented high school football player and freshman in college. When he was a freshman in college, he was the more supremely talented. The ceiling was much higher than that of Jake Fromm. But again, it's a moot point because they were fresh off a national title. Would you agree?
We're 100% agree. And by the time that Justin Fields would have been able to come in and totally prove that, he's off to Ohio State.
Absolutely. All right. We will go to Jeremiah 1. We got 2 Jeremiahs here. We will go to Jeremiah 1, and then we'll hit Dan. Jeremiah, what do you got for me?
So one of the big things that popped up to me lately, actually, Jonathan pointed this out on our podcast the other day. So one of the NFL scouts, or one of the big names, not Mel Kiper, I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but the other one that does a lot like Mel Kiper does, pointed out that one of the things coming from the NFL scouts directly was he had about 200 pass attempts last year. And in those 200 pass attempts during that short season, how many of them do you think went to the second read?
I'll say 36.
7.
7
of them.
What
So
were
it's not
the
only
did he
sorry.
by chance go into the same numbers on Mac Jones? Because from my understanding of the data points for this NFL draft, Mac Jones's data points behind getting to his secondary read are far worse than even Justin Fields.
far worse than 7 out of 200?
Well, it's about the completion percentage in those second, third, fourth reads. But go ahead. Go ahead with your
percentage.
point. Yeah.
Completion percentage, I don't know that. I didn't see that stat directly on this, but I know that he only attempted 7 passes out of his 200 to his second or third or fourth read. So my point of the reason I bring that up right now in this discussion is, if that's the case in this last season when he's about to go to the NFL draft and the NFL scouts are directly asking whether or not they think that he can make those reads and do it, which once again, I'm going to preface by saying, I do believe that if he, once he gets in the NFL, he'll learn and he'll do that in the future. But clearly he didn't do that, whether or not it's because they just didn't do that at Ohio State. Like, he was taught differently. That's what you see a lot of ESPN analysts and people say as well. Like, that was just him running the offense at Ohio State, which is partly true. That he didn't make the checks at the line because they looked to the side. That's how their offense ran. That's what they did. That's fine. My point of it is this. If he's doing that right now in the middle of this past season, how on earth are you going to expect Kirby Smart to bench Jake Fromm, who just came off of a national championship game appearance his freshman season, when he's probably struggling to make those reads in practice? Like, that's my point. And how do you expect him to make that read?
Do we have anybody in the Discord lounge that is Team Fields? I want to hear from Team Fields.
I like Fields in general. Like, I do think he's got a ton of talent. And once again, I think he's going to do well in the NFL. He's going to take a little bit of time to grow. He's going to have those growing pains, I'm sure, his first year. But I do believe Fields is going to be good, that part. My point is, I just don't see how fans expect Kirby to make that move right there.
Because they're fans, and it stands for fanatical. It's always going to be hindsight 2020. Dan, what do you got for me, Dan?
I think the one thing that it drives every Georgia fan crazy that's on the field side of the ledger is that it was never an open competition, and that was what was told from the beginning when he was talking about it publicly, was that it was going to be an open competition. And I think that is the one thing that the Fields camp holds on to this day, and this is why this conversation keeps going to this day, and it's going to keep going just because it was never an open competition. One of the things that Georgia was trying to do was RPO stuff. Fromm never ran the football. Fields could definitely run the football. You're telling me he couldn't make the easy, simple throws and then also mix in some RPO stuff? And I think that's the one thing that just drives everybody crazy is they wanted to see it.
Here's my thing as a football guy, right? You guys have always known that any of my opinions they're mostly just football fact based. Like my opinions on a situation like this, and just for the pundits that are questioning Fields' ability on the NFL level, your job as a football coach, specifically an offensive coordinator, is to we say it's the most cliche thing, and Kirby pounds it all the time. It's to put your quarterback in the best position to win. So if you've got a quarterback that specializes in one reads, running the football, throwing the ball down the field, and that version of that football player makes you the best football team you can be, that's the guy you got to play, and you got to design an offense for him. What I felt was the disingenuous portion of what Kirby Smart did during 2018 was the bullcrap where he ran a legitimate throwing threat quarterback out there and just ran Wildcat offense and gave him 5 plays to go run the football. Emory Jones'd him, basically, like Dan Mullen did down there at Florida. That's the disingenuous part to me. That is the part that's almost, I'm not going to say a spit in the face, but when you go into, like Dan said, the spring and you're promised an opportunity to have an open competition, there's no real feeling that it actually is an open competition. And then you get to the fall and it's like, well, I worked my butt off all summer. Maybe we'll actually open it up to a competition this fall. And it doesn't actually happen in the fall. And then midway through the season, you get Middle Tennessee State to actually get out there and get some run. But most of the season, you're out there as a Wildcat quarterback. Of course that kid's transferring. I think the way in which they approached it was a little bit disingenuous in terms of what they were promising the kid and what they ultimately could provide for the young man. And that's why he checked out. And he did. He checked out. He was completely checked out after about the 4th or 5th week in the season. So I know the LSU game is a big contesting point in this argument, but to me, the decision wasn't even on the table anymore to put Justin Fields in at that point because, again, he had checked out. Thor, I know you're wanting to get in here, buddy. What do you got for me? First of all, welcome on air. Last time we heard from you, you gave us that wonderful correction to the NCAA playoff format. So what do you got for me tonight?
All right, baby, I got you. So, knowing I come from a military background, Justin Fields and Jake Fromm was in a similar situation that you see a lot of military people in. You have one soldier who is a SME, downright knows everything about it, but they can't get along with their squad leader, their platoon sergeant, or their first sergeant. This is the exact same thing that was happening in the QB room between Justin Fields and James Coley. Exact same thing. I believe wholeheartedly it was the exact same thing. They couldn't get along. So
you're saying you think Fields and Coley Fields the quarterback and the QB coach?
Yes. I believe there was some friction there and they could not get along. And that was part of what was happening. Jake Fromm got the nod the year before. He took him to the national championship. There was no way he could get another chance after that.
It's a brand new. I mean, I'm seeing in the Discord chat. And Andrew, feel free to say these things now. We'll talk about it. Go ahead, SSL.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I follow that, but
no, Chaney was the OC in 18, but Coley was still the quarterback's coach. It was his first year on staff as the QB coach, I believe, because he spent 2 years as Fromm's QB coach. I know. Yeah, he was the QB coach at that point. So Thor's theory is that maybe there was some ruffling of the feathers between Coley and Fields. My opinion is that, again, it was just about the way in which they approached the quote-unquote QB battle, even though there was never truly a QB battle. When you do that to a 5-star or, he's the highest-rated quarterback, according to 24/7 Sports, that Georgia's ever signed. So when you do that to a young man like that, Well, guess what? The entire season, and I'm not here to tell you that people are breaking rules, but people are breaking rules. Wake up. During the season, do you think schools weren't calling Justin Fields and telling them that he made a mistake to go to Georgia? That Jake Fromm had 2 more years of college football and that he wasn't going to be a 4-year, or he was going to be a 4-year guy? You think that college coaches weren't calling and telling Justin Fields that? Because they were. They were putting that into his ear, I guarantee it.
Well, something to think about too, though, is Georgia was doing most of its recruiting before they went to the national championship game.
Yeah.
I mean, they're recruiting him early on in the year. They hadn't been to the national championship game yet.
Mm-hmm.
So who could have seen that coming? I mean, a freshman goes out here and takes Georgia to a national championship game. Whether or not you feel that the running backs were the ones who actually got them there, yeah, whatever. I do want to bring up a question, though. Jeremiah number 2 actually pointed this out. So he's been asking somebody to read it. I'll read it for you. Got you, Jeremiah. So what changes would Fields in if he'd stayed through 2019? In 2019, Fromm had no wide receivers. Coley was the OC. I don't think much changes regardless who's at QB.
I would rebuttal with just the fact that the lack of receivers requires much more of a reliance upon the athleticism of the quarterback. So with a lack of weapons, a quarterback that could actually make plays with his legs and become a threat in the run game, as well as a threat to run in the passing game, would open things up much more and make you a lot less reliable on a rushing attack, a lot less reliable on your defense like they were in 2019. I think that would have been the only difference. As far as what it would do to Georgia's trajectory, I mean, Jake Fromm goes and plays elsewhere, first of all. So there's that. But I think the main thing for me was how the Justin Fields saga affected Jake Fromm's career arc at Georgia. I thought there was some animosity from Georgia's fan base about Jake Fromm his last year in 2019. As Georgia fans are watching Justin Fields light it up at Ohio State, they're talking about those things over and over again. They're taking it to their timelines. And, guys, I'm here to tell you that as much as they try to act like they don't read this stuff, football players read this stuff. It affects them. It affects their families. It affects their moms. It affects their dads. And as he's reading about how, Justin Fields, they should have went with him, as they're reading about how Justin Fields is lighting it up at Ohio State, then they come at home and barely beat Kentucky in a rainstorm, and you're booing them at the stadium. The guy was a little bit salty finishing up his junior year at Georgia. So I think, even the decision to pick Fromm affected Fromm, basically moving into his sophomore and his junior season, which ultimately ended up being his last season at Georgia. So I think hindsight 2020, maybe you tell Fields that, look, man, this guy is going to be a 3-year guy. We wholeheartedly believe that he's going to be leaving after 3 years. And then, we'll redshirt you this year instead of uselessly burning your red shirt on wildcat formation plays. Maybe that's what should have happened. But again, all hindsight 2020, none of this stuff really solves any questions. So my question to you guys here in the lounge, and feel free to hop in, whoever wants it can get it first. What is the right decision? Is this ever going to go to bed? Is there a final point to this discussion, or is this something that's just going to be made and talked about for the rest of time?
To steal a word from Kirby Smart.
I got it.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
So
I can tell you why this discussion will go to bed.
Okay.
Because the most important person in this equation has already answered it. It's Kirby Smart, and he's already told you that he thinks he made the wrong decision, and it's proven it by the way he's treated JT Daniels and Brock Vandergriff. It's a very, very similar situation, except JT didn't just take you to a national championship. He just played 4 good games. And what did he do with Brock? Did he come in and did he tell Brock that he was going to be a starter and it was going to be an open competition? No. He said, come in, you can compete for the number 2 job, and next year, once JT goes to the draft, then it'll be an open competition. And
so it is
what
a
did
solid
he do this
point.
spring? He named JT the starter, something he never did with Fromm. The only year that Fromm was even considered a full starter going into the season was when it was only him and Stetson. And even then, he didn't really name him. It was just a moot point. So I think we have the answer to this question. Now, we'll keep debating it because we're Georgia fans and we love to do it. But we know the right answer because Kirby Smart has told us what he thinks.
I think that's a really, really great point. And I think to
I
me,
have a rebuttal to that.
oh, we have a rebuttal. Let's hear it.
All right. So the thing is, to me, that's almost the same situation because think about it. JT's
It
the
is.
guy that came in and he came in and took over in those 4 games and showed he should have it, which is exactly why
Fromm did
Fromm
decent.
came in and kept the job. But but that's a good point with Eason too, because I was going to bring that up as well. So Jacob Eason, think about this. What happens if Jacob Eason doesn't get hurt? Fromm probably doesn't see the field. Fromm may never play at Georgia, or he probably transfers or something like that if Jacob Eason doesn't get hurt. So, but to go back to what Cam is saying there, I do believe that it's the same type of situation. I don't really think that Kirby answered it by doing so because to me, he made the same decision he made with Fromm. He took the guy that just came off of it and he's letting him be the starter and he's improved his decision-making prior to what he had before. And he's going into the situation saying, this is JT's job rather than trying to say, hey, it's open competition, that kind of thing. However,
which is the difference. That's the difference between the two things. And that tells you that he knows he handled the field situation poorly. He doesn't change his decision making if he thinks he did it right the first time.
It poorly. I think. Well, I mean, overall, it's poorly in the sense of like from Justin Fields ended up being who he was today. But here's my point.
Fields
that I want
felt
to say
he handled it poorly.
Well, Fields is also
of course
the guy.
Fields was going to think he handled it poorly.
Right.
He's just as important as anybody else.
And honestly,
guys,
so
I would like to throw out.
Go ahead, Thor.
So I'm going to go ahead and go out on the limb and say this is not going to be put to bed until three things happen. Three things happen. 1, Kirby Smart beats Alabama. 2, Kirby Smart wins a national championship. And 3, Kirby Smart puts it to bed. This is going to continue to go on forever until that time happens.
I honestly, I like the third option. And he'll never do it. I don't think he would. But I just wish he'd be a little more forthcoming on these things because we would know. Instead of being so cryptic in your pre and post game press conferences, instead of being so cryptic in your post practice press conferences, actually be forthcoming. Don't tell me that Justin and Jake did some good things at practice. Tell me why you decided to go with Jake Fromm. Don't go into a game against Florida and have 3 guys listed as your starting quarterback. Don't do that. Be a lot more forthcoming about what's going on. And then if you entered that football season saying that, hey, look, Justin is supremely talented. He's not ready yet because, like I believe Jeremiah pointed out, he's doing that to Brock Vandergriff right now. He's talking about how Brock is not quite ready, how he showed flashes and things like that. He could have said those very same things, and maybe he did. I wasn't on the beat back then, but he very well could have said those same things about Justin, how Jake is our guy and Jake needs to be our guy. He just took us to a national title game. Justin is our guy for the future. He's shown flashes of greatness. He's just not there yet. If those were the talking points, if he was a little bit more forthcoming, then you wouldn't hear that. I don't think you would hear as much backlash from the fan base as you do now. All you hear now is about how they made the wrong choice because Justin did a great job. Or you hear the other Georgia fans saying, no, he couldn't process, screw it. They would have been terrible anyways in 18 because Justin wasn't ready. So you're going to get that the rest of the time. But Thor, and we'll end it on this, and we'll open it up to the floor one more time because I know we got some guys trying to get in here. But I'll just say this. It's not going to end until a national title is won or until we're 10 years down the road where no one truly cares. But at that point, Justin Fields might be a 3-time MVP in the NFL, and then it doesn't matter what Kirby Smart does. It doesn't matter if Georgia wins a national title. And Jeremiah hopped in the OG chat and asked for the last comment. So Jeremiah 1, we are going to you, brother. Put a bow on this sucker.
Last question for you specifically on this, Brooks. And Jeremiah 2 kind of pointed it out a little bit, and I'm gonna piggyback off of it. If Fromm stayed one more year and we don't start this season with Stetson Bennett as our quarterback, what do you think Georgia's season looked like this year when he actually has Fromm working with Munkin, who actually has an incredible offensive scheme pulled up, which he didn't have with Coley? Do you think Fromm has an entirely different type of season and then completely squashes this himself?
Yeah, but he would have played well in Munkin's system. I mean, we saw Stetson Bennett look like a meddling or a high quality starter in the SEC for a couple of football games, right? Against Auburn, against Tennessee, partially for a couple of plays and a couple of quarters until his shoulder got messed up against Florida. He looked like an above average starter. Jake Fromm would have been that on steroids. He is Stetson Bennett primo, right? He is Stetson Bennett with a couple more inches and a little bit better or quicker processor in terms of what he's got going on. And he came from an air raid offense in high school. So, yeah, he would have had great stats. I'm telling you that with the way in which the fan base responded, with the way in which, maybe Fromm may or may not felt like he was being treated, or maybe his parents felt like they were being treated from the fan base, that I'm telling you year 4 was probably not a likelihood. It just wasn't. There was a chance that he could come back, but the likelihood of him coming back in 2020 was not likely. He was staring down a 3rd to 4th round NFL draft grade and still chose to leave the University of Georgia. So that kind of tells you where his mind was. I think his mind was kind of made up no matter what. And then he ends up being a 5th round draft pick. And guess who looked like the happiest individual on draft day in the history of happy people on draft day? Jake Fromm, even though he's a 5th round draft pick. So that's kind of my thing. Dan, I know you wanted to get in here and talk. What do you got for me, Dan?
I think the greatest thing to come out of this is Kirby understood after that he fractured the fan base with his silence, for lack of a better term, kind of with his arrogance of I know everything about everything. And I think he's really learned from it that he's got to be a little bit more vocal. He's got to be a little bit more forthcoming with certain aspects of his football program, because whether you like it or not, whether you think it's right or wrong, it fractured the fan base. It fractured that locker room. The way he handled that quarterback situation fractured that locker room, and I think it hindered their ability to win football games. That's just my opinion, but that's everybody I talk to always comes back to no open competition. Kirby wouldn't talk about it. He was really arrogant about it, in my perception of it, and I think he's learned from that, and he's been a lot more forthcoming with this new quarterback situation that we have now. I mean, granted, we're in a much better situation. JT is got this bull by the horns, and he looks like he's ready just to roll. And I don't think there's anybody on campus that's going to argue that he's not the guy to do it unless something, catastrophic happens. But I think he learned from it, and I think that's good for all of us.
Absolutely. Any final points from the boys in the lounge? We got anything else?
I got one.
Okay, here we go, SSL. Close us out, baby. Pound it hard.
Because
phrasing. Pause.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So we've been spending this whole rest of this time talking about the whole Justin Fields, Georgia, letting him go.
Which, by the way, I don't mean to stunt your roll right here. Dicko is so frustrated with this conversation. He thinks this bit is so dead. So go ahead, put a bow on it.
He's not the only one, because this is the most pointless conversation to be having. But it does lead me into another thing that I think is a complete, utter double standard, and I'm sick of it. Because it seems to be cool, hip, the good thing to go and crucify Georgia for Justin Fields. But you don't hear a damn word about Ohio State and them letting Burrow walk out the door. And then Burrow goes and absolutely destroys the entire college football system in, 2019? 2018? Which year was it?
19.
Either way, 2019. He goes and he just wrecks everybody. And you telling me Ohio State let that man walk out the door for Justin Fields, I might add. For Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And look who came out the better in that, because I guarantee you, LSU fans, even if they're dealing with all the crap that they're dealing with right now, LSU fans happy to have that particular national championship. I'm telling you. I just don't understand why you never hear about that. You never once.
Well, you know, Andrew, it's because the national media hates the Georgia Bulldogs. That's why.
That means less to me. I could not care less if the media likes Georgia.
I was being sarcastic anyways.
Oh, I know you were, but I know some fans who will say that and they'll mean it. But I just never understood why that was. And so perhaps the debate should not be Fromm versus Fields. But
you know what? SSL,
versus Fromm.
It should be Fields versus Fromm. I'm going to cut you off. And, Dicko, I'm going to mute my mic so you can get in here. And you can just tell me how useless you think this conversation is. You've been back there with your daggum hand in your head in your hands. You've been disappointed in the entire conversation. So tell me why you're disappointed in the conversation.
It doesn't need to be talked about. The more it's talked, you want fan bases to stop talking about it. Our own fan base needs to stop talking about it. Y'all say you're tired of Ohio State fans, Alabama fans, Florida fans, Tennessee fans talking about that shit. Stop talking about it. Stop talking about it. No one cares.
No one cares.
Got 3 quarterbacks who can start and take us to the playoffs. 3. Why are you guys tripping? That's why I'm frustrated.
I hope they heard that because you were out of the Discord lounge, so it was just us, and you were getting picked up on our mic. He's hot, man. He's hot by the conversation, and he should be because, I mean, to be honest with you, I've always thought it was kind of a pointless conversation. It's something that needs to be learned from, and I think, as we've talked about here, I think Kirby has learned from it. I think he's been a little bit more forthcoming about where he's at in the quarterback room this year, at least, when he's got a guy and he's got another guy in that 2021 signing class in Vandergrift that he's got to keep patient. Same thing with Beck in that 2020 class. He's got to keep those guys patient. He has learned from this Fields debacle because he will hear it the rest of his career as a head coach until he wins a national title, as we've discussed. He has learned to manage the expectations of 18-year-old kids entering his programs with the thought of, I'm going to play this year. The quarterback position, as we all know, is different than any other position in sports, period. It is the one position that does not come in and out. It is the one position that is the guy. Until that guy is hurt or until that guy plays so poorly that he deserves to get pulled, he is the guy. There is no rotation until a blowout. It's not like defensive line rotations. It's not like linebacker rotations. It's not like safety rotations. So what I think Kirby has learned is that when you stack that room at that quarterback room, just like you stack your running back room, just like you stack your outside linebacker room, just like you stack your linebacker room, then you have to manage the expectations differently in the quarterback room than you do in the linebacker room. Nakobe Dean, even though he wasn't starting as a true freshman, got about 30% of the reps because there was room for him to do so. Justin Fields did not. All he got was Wildcat formation. And I don't know if there was ever any realistic conversations about, look, this is why Jake is our guy. This is why you didn't get the chance. And maybe those conversations should have been had before he even got on campus. And maybe he would have went elsewhere. And maybe if he did go elsewhere, you know, Georgia fans would have crapped on Kirby for letting the best Georgia quarterback ever per ranking out of the state and go and play somewhere else. That's fine. He would have avoided what now appears to be a decade-long conversation about whether or not he made the right decision. I'm going to tell you what, there is no right decision. If Jake Fromm would have went off and if maybe he chose Justin Fields, the season results in the same, yeah, we're beating a dead horse at this point, as the Discord is talking about. Dog chat, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry I put you through that. I'm really sorry I put you guys through that. We're out of here. That was NBR for tonight. I'll be back Sunday at some point. We got some big things planned for G-Day and moving forward. And we're probably going to try to get the lounge involved in here talking just a little bit more. Tonight was a trial run, and we just so happened to bring out the most over-talked and beaten discussion that we've ever had. We need to get back into talking about cookout orders and favorite dipping sauces and things like that. Those are the hot topics that we need to be hitting. All right, that's it for here. If you could, before you leave, please hit that like button, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button over there on YouTube. And if you're not already, head over on to patreon.com. That's how you get in on this. If you want to be a part of this, if you want to shoot the bull with us on air or whatever, if you just want to hang out with us and, get involved in a large group of weird people who like to talk about Georgia football, then come hang out with the Discord folks over there on patreon.com/Brooks Austin. I'm Brooks Austin, the film guy. We'll see you next time.